So I decided to go ahead and re-narrate this original video. I all I want to say is just I give props to these guys, man, because they went and they decided to work on their cars, and just the lack of information, people aren't willing to share how they do their frame offs. I think these guys would have succeeded with what they were trying to get across without ruining their projects or jacking it up with uneven wood on a jack stand or a floor jack or jacking it up from the gas tank, which can lead to you not only putting yourself at risk but ruining your project. I mean, scissor jacks on wood like this, it's just there's other methods to get that height that doesn't put you at risk, which I'm willing to share the way I do it all by myself. Now, this is early signs of buckling for this guy. He ends up ruining his project. The roof ends up caving in. His B pillar ends up ripping. If you have a rusty floor like this car had, your best bet is to leave it on the frame, replace the floor, and then pull the body off. But then you have to brace it. You don't want I mean, the whole structure of the car is roof and floor. This is LSX Reels, and this is the way he goes about pulling a frame off. Looks like he's going on the A-pillar motor body mounts, and then he's using a cherry picker on the trunk latch, and then just two car dollies and slides it off, which I used to go with this method back in the day. This is my El Camino 2000s. I use large jack stands in the back and a cherry picker on the front where the hood latch is. This is my inventory. I have 4 8-foot 4x4 lumbers, which I will use to separate the body from the frame. And I use 4 because I want to spread the load of the car between the frame and the car. The 2 other ones are 7 feet. I end up getting a foot cut off, which I will show you why later. And I actually use that piece of wood to jack up the body and separate the body from the car, and then I end up sliding these guys through. And you don't have to use 4x4s. That's just what I use because, you know, once again, you're going to see me doing this frame off all by myself. Pretty much one-handed because my other hand's on the phone. The next on my inventory are these dollies. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up dropping the whole suspension from the car and dropping the frame on these dollies. And being the fact that these dollies can move back and forth, you know, it's not as restrictive. You're going to end up sliding it out to the side anyways. And I prefer the dollies. And it just gives you extra clearance. So I got my jack stands. These are 4 12 tons and then the 4 6 tons. I like to opt out for the 12 tons in the back because the car actually kind of teeters from the B pillar. And I actually tend to lift and drop the car in certain ways, and you'll see how I get to that later. Let's see, and as that's just the 4x4s as we go forward. Waiting. So here is how I use that 1 foot of 4x4. It actually fits perfect inside this Harbor Freight jack or floor jack. And I'll actually use this on the body, and I'll end up jacking the body up off the frame with it. Let's see what else we got. So this jack stand ends up having a lip, and then on the bottom of the body there is a lip before you see the seam. I end up hooking that lip right there on that first kind of crease, and then the seam is right after, and I end up hooking up that lip right on that lip from the so things you need to get off the firewall, of course, all the wiring. Don't forget to take the e-brake off, the hood latch, speedo, your grounds. You know, I like to take, well, you're going to take off the brake booster because the brake booster is actually going to stay on the frame. And if you want some extra clearance, don't forget to take off this the fuel lines in the back, which are rubber. And if you need extra clearance, don't forget to pull off the fuel tank, which will give you a few more inches too. As we move forward, the jacking points of the car. So right here, where this whole firewall is at, that's considered the A pillar. It's a structural point of the car. And as you go further back, where the door closes, right there, that is considered the B pillar. As you go further back, there's a structural spot right there that goes, it's technically separates the trunk from the cab, and that's a C pillar. And then when you go past the trunk, I would consider that maybe a D pillar. So let's see, what else am I going up to? So you see where that screws at on that's where we would jack it up from with the cherry picker. That's how I used to do the El Camino, which would stretch that whole area right there. And let's see, and then I also like this method a lot because my floors are really nice. So what I'm going to do now is jack up the whole entire car from the frame, and I am going to stick these jack stands in a way where I can separate the body from the frame, and it allows me to slide these lumbers across. Now the 8 inches or the 8 feet I'm going to put at the A pillar and the B pillar, and I'm going to leave these large jacks in the back. From the back, I jack it up from the pumpkin, and then I just lower the frame down. Now I got the lumbers in, and I will jack the car up again from the body, or actually from the frame, which will allow me to move these jacks out. And I'll use, once again, this is the A pillar, and then the B pillar, and then in the back you'll see that large jack stand, which it'll go back and forth and it'll teeter off of that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll drop the body, or actually the frame. And my next thing that I'm going to do here is I like to go around and make sure all, these jack stands are in. You see how that one was light. Floors are never level, so you got to keep checking it. So what I'll do now, what I'm doing here now, is I am dropping the rear suspension, upper control arms and stuff. I'm pretty much doing this one-handed with the phone in my hand. And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and slide that out. And right there, we just made it able so that way I can slide past that rear cross member that is so high that it's difficult to get out, which I feel like this is the biggest issue with guys. And I'll go ahead and drop the frame, and what I'll do is I'll take those dollies and put them back out, and I'll leave just this dolly up front. Pretty much this car is just about ready to come out, and there's tons of space, but as you can see, I'm opting out for the larger jack stands in the back, which gives me more space. When you do have those large jack stands in the back, all you really got to do is just pull the jack stand back a little bit, and it'll reattach it to the fender, as you can see. So this is me getting more height, and what I'll do is I'll jack up the body, and you see how I got the angle on the block there, and this allows me to scoot it out even more, because what I am going to end up doing is pulling these lumbers off, and I'm going to put these 12 tons up front where the A pillar body mounts are at. And there we go, we're going up. One thing where I screwed up at is on these jack stands that I have, they have these levers, and you want to make sure these levers always point outwards, because if not, you don't want your frame getting caught up. As you can see, that lever right there is pointing inwards, and you see the other one's pointing outwards. But you see it's how it's not connecting because it tends to teeter because floors aren't even. And you want to always check that, you know, the frame or the jack stands are connecting with the body. So like here, I'll just scoot it up and it'll make sure it doesn't move. That actually comes in handy later when you pull the frame off, because when you pull it out, you can always pull it off to the side. And I think at this point here, I drop the body back down, but I end up lifting it back up and, you know, fixing that jack stand there where you see the latch is kind of like inwards. Here we go. So here I go again, going back, checking the jacks, see how that one pulled forward. So I'm going to go ahead and lift it up, push it back, pull it forward, and make sure it makes contact with the fender there. So this is the next day. Frame's ready to come out. You see that 12 tons missing in the back there. So that way you don't have to pull the frame all the way out, and you know, you just can get it right past the B pillar and just slide it right on over. You know, when you reinforce a frame, it kind of makes it a little bit of a pain in the ass to get out. I mean, for some reason, like that frame is just, it's just so resistant. Like it just, like I try to like move it, it's just so heavy in the back. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's gonna add for traction and stuff, but yeah. And you know, those dollies, they come in so useful because, you know, they're 360 degrees, so you could just roll it over and stuff, or to the side or whatever. So then generally pretty much what I'll do is I'll go ahead and reattach that 1210 in the back. And once again, like since your rear quarter panel there, it's at an angle like that, you just lift it up and just connect it. Doesn't really matter where, as long as it's just connected. And being the fact that you're spreading it between like 6 points, you know, it just makes it really safe, you know. Car's super sturdy up there. Like if I wanted to open up the doors and close it, I wouldn't have to worry about it possibly falling. I'm going to go ahead and take some measurements here so that way you see how high I got it with, you know, this method here where you don't need to take the gas tank out with the 12-ton jacks. But definitely every time you make a move or you move the body or you move something, you always want to check the jack stands just to be safe, man. You don't want your car on the floor, none of that. See how I'm just checking it? I'm going to end up lifting that back up because I just like, you know, even if it does slide, the jack is there. I mean, between 4 spots or 6 spots, it's just safer. So I'm going to go ahead and take some measurements here. I just want to say, man, I want you guys to be able to do this too, man. I like to see people put out some cars, you know. You know, you don't need to take this to the shop. But I love to see some product out there, and here's the measurements. Up front, it looks like it's 25. On the B pillar, it's like about 23, and on the C pillar, you'll see it's like about 27.